Oh, hello, Spirit House here. I'm reading from The Secret of Light by Walter Russell, and I am continuing on the second half of chapter. Let me see what the chapter 12, which is entitled Light, and I'm beginning with the second half of this chapter entitled Semi-Cyclic Alteration. In an electric current, there is a constant interchange between anode and cathode, or positive and negative poles. A light particle expands as it leaves the anode in an outward radial direction and contracts it as it radially approaches the anode. Anode. This light particle has been the same light particle at all times in all parts of its journey. Its variation of charge and discharge, its direction of motion, and the condition of wave pressure in which it finds itself at any time are the sole reasons for its changing from one condition to another. The light particles are at all the same light particles, all being different only in pressure condition. This is also true of the elements of matter, whether they be iron, carbon, silicon, bismuth, or radium. All are composed of the same kind of light particles. They all seem to have different qualities and attributes, but those qualities and attributes are likewise given to them purely by the positions they occupy in their waves. All things simulate light. A particle of light which belongs to an atomic system of sodium has in it all of the entire range of the elements, besides all of every other creating thing in the universe. It acts to carry out the purposefulness of the idea of sodium simply because it is in the pressure condition of sodium, and is a part of the unfolding pattern of the seed of inert gas of the octave form which it has unfolded. If that same particle unfolded from the seed of the oak, it would be part of the wood fiber of its trunk, or leaf, or of the chlorophyll which colored its leaves, but it would be the same kind of particle while fulfilling the purpose of cellulose as while fulfilling the purpose of sodium. All matter in this universe is but differently conditioned motion simulating light, and all differences in condition are pressure differences. Light does not travel. The speed with which light presumably travels is 186,400 miles per second. The distance between stars is so great that the speed of light is computed as light years, for the distance computed by lesser units of time would yield figures so great that they would be meaningless. Light only seems to travel, another travesty of universities, and that's my side note. It is but one more of the countless illusions caused by wave motion. Waves of the ocean seem to traverse the ocean, but they only appear to do so, for waves are pistons in the universal engines, and pistons operate up and down. Wave pistons of light or of the ocean operate radially and spirally inward and outward, toward and away from gravity. Waves of light do not travel. They reproduce each other from wave field to wave field of space. The planes of zero curvature, which bound all wave fields, act as mirrors to reflect light from one field to another. This sets up an appearance of light as traveling, which is pure illusion. The sunlight we feel upon our bodies is not actual light from the sun. What actually is happening is that the sun is reproducing its own condition on the earth by extending the reproduction out through cold space into ever enlarging wave fields until those reproductions begin to converge again toward our center of gravity into ever smaller wave fields. The heat we feel and the light we see are dependent entirely upon the ability of the wave fields to reproduce the light and heat. And that ability is conditioned upon the amount of moisture in the atmosphere. If there were no moisture in the atmosphere, our bodies would carbonize from the heat thus reproduced. One cannot consistently think of that heat as direct rays of the sun, for the same sunlight was intensely cold during its reproduced journey through the immensely expanded wave fields of space between the sun and the earth. The light and heat which appear to come from the star or sun have never left the star or sun. That which man sees as light and feels as heat are the reproduced counterparts of the light and heat which are its cause. The rate of vibration in a wave field depends upon its volume. Vibration in a wave field means the pulse of interchange between its compressed core and the space surrounding that core. A slow vibration in a large wave field would cool one's body or even freeze it, while fast pulsing interchange in extremely small wave fields could burn one's body. A lens which multiplies light and heat toward a focal point which sets paper on fire merely compresses larger wave fields into smaller ones. The rate of vibration increases for the same reason that the planets nearest the sun move much faster in their small orbits than those which are far away from the sun. Kepler's law covering the speed of planets will apply to the rates of vibration in wave fields as appropriately as with the movements in the solar system. And a caption from the Divine Iliad. The imaged universe of my dual thinking is a two-way interchanging between unbalanced lever ends of light which extend from me, their fulcrum of power and rest, and return to me. Behold in me the fulcrum of my changing universe which manifests change, though I change not nor move. For I am rest, in me alone is balance. He who would find He who would find power must know that he extends from me, that I am he. He who would find rest must return to me, be fulcrum of his own power. From the Divine Iliad. Chapter 13. Cycles. All energy is expressed in wave cycles. A cycle is a two-way electric journey from a compression point of rest where gravity ceases and radiation begins, to an expansion point of rest at wave field boundaries where radiation ceases and gravity begins. It is the universal heartbeat of this pulsing universe of two-way motion. The life-death cycle of man is one wave in an electric current. Growth and decay, or the incoming-outgoing breath, are two halves of cycles. The matter is expressed in two-way cycles because matter is but a record of God's knowing, expressed by the two opposed desires of his two-way self-voiding thinking. All nature is an expression of the two desires of the Creator, the desire for separation from the oneness of rest in him into a multiplicity of image forms of his imagining, and for avoidance of that multiplicity by a return to rest in his oneness. A cycle is like winding and unwinding a clock spring, except that matter is wound up into visible spheres and unwound into invisible cubes. The unwinding of a clock spring is a reverse process from that of its winding. Nature is continuous. It never reverses. Like the piston in an engine or two children on a seesaw. Nature turns its wave inside out and outside in a continuous spiral flow of direction. Solid matter gradually interchanges with space in its breathing cycles until gravitation has attained its maximum. Radiation then exceeds the power of gravitation and matter begins to expand instead of to contract. Radiation is light outwardly bound from the seed. Gravitation is light inwardly bound toward the seed. Outwardly bound light manifests the unfolding of pattern light from the seed. It is the mother of creation. Inwardly bound light manifests the refolding of pattern light into its seed. It is the father of creation. The mother of creation gives pattern bodies to idea by unfolding idea unto the heavens. That is the first half of every cycle. The father refolds all unfolding idea back towards its seed. Otherwise, the unfolding form could not become visible as matter. That is the second half of every cycle. All growing things manifest an unfolding and refolding process in every pulsation of interchange between the father-mother lights of creation. The outward-inward breath of all things is the constant interchanging cycle process by means of which one opposite gradually becomes the other until each become the other in totality by completing the interchange. Each outward-inward breath is a cycle. Each half cycle is cancelled by its other half until both are cancelled. Neither then manifests. Both disappear into their equilibrium to reappear as the other. Life and death gradually interchange to cancel each other for the purpose of repeating the cycle of life and death. Death is born in the same cradle with life, but life is strong while death is weak. From the very first breath of the newborn babe, death voids life by each outward breath, and life voids death by each inward breath. At maturity, death has become balanced with life, and death then becomes stronger until both disappear to reappear with life as the stronger and death the weaker opposite. It is said that the universe is expanding to a heat death, that all heat is gradually going out of the universe, leaving it utterly cold and empty. It is believed that radiation is a downhill flow of energy, which is not compensated for by an equal uphill flow. Radiation is known as radiant energy. Radiation is but the outbreathing of this universal body, which breathes in its entirety exactly as man and all things else in nature breathe. Radiation is the unfolding mother light. The inbreathing of nature is gravitation. Gravitation is the father light, which refolds that which unfolds. For every drop of water that radiant energy discharges from the earth, gravitation energy charges it with falling waters. One of these opposites is the downhill flow of expressed energy, and the other is its equal uphill flow. Every creating thing in this universe has a father and a mother. Not only animal and vegetable life, but every corpuscle of matter in the universe. Likewise, every creating thing is both father and mother. The mother borns the father, and the father borns the mother. The proton borns the electron, and the electron the proton. Each was the other, and each sequentially becomes the other through the pulsing breath of wave interchange. Deceptive evidence. One of the illusions which deceived man into believing that God's universal body was dying was the discovery that all nebulae are rushing away from each other with incredible velocities. This fact would lead to the utter dissolution of the universe in time. The so-called red shift in the spectrum proved this to be a fact. The fact is true. They do rush away from each other, but the conclusion drawn from that observed fact is not justified by the processes of natural law. The reason for the universal expansion which is now taking place is that the universe as a whole breathes inward and outward, just as all things in nature do. Large-scale breathing cycles of the whole universe body consume untold eons for the completion of one cycle, while man consumes but a few seconds to complete his cycle. Man of eons to come will witness the effect of nebula rushing toward each other at the same speed for the same number of eons. In all nature there is no effect of motion which is not balanced by an opposite effect. The universe is sexed throughout. One sex cannot exist without the other. Radiant energy is impossible without generative energy to born it. The desire of the Creator for separateness must be balanced with his desire for oneness. The expansion stroke of the universal piston must have a balancing compression stroke in order that the universal body may manifest the life of its Creator. The whole universe slowly expands toward the death half of its breathing cycle, and then contracts towards the life half of it. Every separate mass in the universe is in its own part of its life cycle, either inbreathing toward the high point of its maturity or outbreathing towards its resurrection. Each one, whether generating or degenerating, is being generated into extended life by the inbreathing of the whole, of which it is an indissoluble part. And a caption from the Divine Iliad. In my imagined universe, all things are two, centered by me, for all things extend from the dual two-wave moving pendulum of my thinking, and my thinking is two. I, the one light, center the two lights which register my thinking, but I am not those two lights, nor am I my thinking. Behold in me the Trinity, the one extended unto the two, the one Creator centering the extended two. In my imaged universe, all effect is also two. All thermal measures and all weights of things, the two of matter and of time and of direction, the two of color and of the elements, the two of the wave of my thinking and its expressions. The very one light of me is extended in the two lights of my imagining. Naught is there in all my universe which is not part and counterpart pairs of things, equal and opposite counterpart pairs of creating and repeating things, each seeking to unbalance each, and each forever seeking balance in each. For behold, I am light, but the universe of my imagining is dual light. Light divided and multiplied by common root directly and inversely applied to all things which forever move two ways between the two extended lights of their centering, one, to express my knowing by my thinking. From the Divine Iliad.